Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerds, and today I'm hanging out with a bunch of nerds here. We got Bill Webb, Jim Wappler, and Zach Lazar from Frog God Games hanging out with us today. So how are you all doing, gentlemen?
I'm doing great.
It's bright and sunny in Western Washington on a winter day, which is pretty weird. So I'm happy.
I'm all charged up with Gary Con goodness.
So we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We got you guys announced the MegaHeroes over at Gary Con. Pathfinders, they're dropping a new edition. You guys got a very successful Kickstarter going right now, Rappan Athuk, Reborn. So there's a lot of stuff to cover. Where do you guys want to start?
Bill, go ahead. You pick.
Let's talk about the Kickstarter first, because there's actually some kind of cool things about this one. As many of you know, I first produced way back in the day, almost 18 years ago, the first kind of pieces of Rappan Athuk. The one we're doing for 5e right now is kind of special to me, and there's a lot of new stuff in it, and there's a lot of revised stuff in it. And of course, it's made for 5th edition, which is completely new. But the really neat thing was a couple years ago, and I talked about this at Gary Con with some folks too. I ran into a guy who I played with in the late 70s, so about maybe 1977 to about 1981, when he moved to Alabama, and when we were in high school. So he moved away. And back in the day, we used to, we had notebooks and stuff, and we'd write it all down in pencil, and because everything was sort of a living dungeon. And so when you killed the monster, and the party got the treasure, you'd erase it, and then 2-3 weeks later, you'd write something new in because the dungeon would be restocked and that kind of thing. Well, there were 9 levels of Rappan Athuk that I had lost most of my notes to, and I didn't have a lot of the stuff because I had some of the revisions to it and that kind of thing, but I didn't have the original material because I'd erased it literally with a pencil and an eraser. I ran into this guy. I think it was Gamehole Con 2.5 years ago, and I hadn't seen him since 1981. His name's Richard, and the punchline is this: he had Xerox copies of the stuff that I'd written back in the 70s that he took with him when he moved to Alabama. And so I actually recovered an entire section of the dungeon, which is called Tunnels of Terror. It was one of the sub dungeons that was sort of the lower level pieces of Rappan Athuk. I recovered those, and we were able to recreate those. A couple of the levels I was able to recreate from literally fine line reading my notes and kind of the pencil marks, and I actually used a lead scraper on the handwriting, and we recovered most of that, and some of that went into the expansions book. I think 2 or 3 levels of it did, but I got the rest of them, and so all of those except for the very final level, which is level 5D or E or something. Now I lost track. There's so many levels, but it's one of the level 5s. Are in the main book, and that was a stretch goal that we put at $60,000, and it's far exceeded. So that one's going to be produced as a bonus module for the Kickstarter. But actually getting back my original material, and this stuff is as old as like levels 0, 1, 2, and 3 and 4A. It was really cool, and it was just a shocker to actually get copies of this stuff. He emailed me all the maps and I had partial maps. He emailed me the maps, and he emailed me all the text that I'd written, and I was able to decipher hand scribblings from the original book. And so that's sort of the capstone for me was that the original stuff I've got in this version, and it's never been seen before. So there's that. We're actually adding stretch goals seemingly by the day, even in the doldrums. I think we went up about $3,000 or $4,000 yesterday. And we tried real hard to keep the price point down on this thing to something manageable. And I got to when Zach and Skeeter came to me and wanted to do a 5th edition version of it, I told them no, and they were like, why? And I'm like, because the maps themselves are going to be $25,000 or $30,000. Lo and behold, I was right. The maps were about $30,000. And as many of the viewers and everybody on the screen probably already knows, we ran a separate Kickstarter that was a zero profit Kickstarter to pay for the maps. And so we literally made I think we're negative $3,000 on that Kickstarter, but we got hi Lola, we got my Labrador's saying hello. but we actually got enough money to do it, so we didn't want to increase the price of the book. I didn't want to have to charge $160 for a 600-page colored book. I wanted to keep the price point around $100. And because we were able to do that first Kickstarter and get the maps done, well, I wouldn't call it for free. I mean, people paid for them, and they got PSD files for virtual tabletop use, and they're gonna get map packs of all the color maps. I think it's 119 DM maps and 119 player maps. But you can imagine our cartographer, Robert Altbauer, who just had a new baby, by the way, or is about to. I think his wife said might even be in the hospital right now, over in Austria. I think we're going to cover his expenses for having that kid, but he was a busy guy, and so we were able to, by doing that first Kickstarter and putting all the investment money that we got back from it into this product, make it so that we could make the book affordable. And so Zach and Skeeter were smarter than me. They figured out a way to do it, and I think it's really nice. I didn't want to have a super expensive book that a lot of our customers and fans couldn't afford. And so this thing's really it's big, and it's big, and it's scary, and I think we've surpassed whatever the world's largest dungeon or a couple other things like that have ever claimed to have in terms of encounter areas. I know that something or other of the Mad Archmage, I guess, might have more physical locations, but they're one-liners, and these are actually fully described rooms with connection and purpose to each other, and I'm pretty proud of it. Skeeter Green in particular gets just huge props for this, pulling this thing together, and I know he and Zach spent hundreds of hours making sure the map connections were right, that the text was right, that connected the map levels, the kind of weird cross section of having, is it 59 levels just in the main dungeon, Zach?
Yes. Yes, there is.
Plus 20 something odd wilderness areas that all connect into the dungeon, and a town, and one of the town's kind of neat too, because Matt Finch developed the town, and it's sort of loosely based on the way that we run our Mithras Tower game at all the conventions we go to, which is it's set up as a adventurer town, because of course it's right near this huge dungeon, so who would want to park there besides adventurers? And one of the stretch goals that we just passed, I think about $4,000 or $5,000 ago, was we've brought Alex Cameron from Gamehole Con on board to write. He's really good at village and city adventures, and so we brought him on and asked him to do some adventures for the town that are kind of lower level, so that people can gain a few levels before they go down the well.
So I noticed you have a mystery stretch goal level. Yeah,
we're still arguing about that. They threatened to put me in a T-shirt that said "No, Bill!" ! Because if the guys let me determine the stretch goals, we'll go broke. So
I want to interject here. That is 100% true. Nobody is more excited about this stuff than Bill, and when he gets excited, he wants to give everybody everything like right away. And I want to do that too, but I also want to do this next year. But it's the mystery stretch goal is the one at the end, is the one where we beat the amount of the Rappan Athuk Kickstarter 2012. Kickstarter has kind of changed a bit, and the Wild West atmosphere that was there in 2012 isn't. People are a lot more discriminating. We actually have more backers than we did then, but we had a lot of different levels and a lot of different options that I know that almost got Bill either murdered or divorced trying to actually ship it out without a backer kit. Didn't exist then. Yeah. And so they had hundreds of options and packaging and stuff. And we're trying to keep it so, one, we have a delivery in September. The book is done. It's about ready to hit layout. We're just going through now and doing the NPCs and making sure they're all up to snuff. Patrick Pilgrim's working on that. And then that will be turned in and ready to go, and it'll be off to print. So the turnaround time is a lot faster. And so we've thought of all that stuff. But so with that in mind, we do have to tell him no a lot.
Yeah. Well, part of the thing, it's on fulfillment, on the original Kickstarter, we had 30 or 40 different items that you could get, dice and miniatures and poster maps and modules and stuff. And backer kit didn't exist. And so we were doing that on a spreadsheet. And not only did it increase, I mean, the main base pledge that was sort of the full meal deal was $250, but it came with like a whole thing. It had two custom made miniatures from Reaper. It had a set of dice. It had some cards. It had, I think my Xerox copy of my original notes, the first 9 levels.
It had your 100 sentences you wrote that I will.
Yeah,
Lisa Stevens made him write like a Bart Simpson on a piece of paper over and over again, one sentence, because he underestimated the demand. So it had things like that we don't have this time, but it's going to be slick. It's very beautiful. The art is really, really, really good. Color art is the best we've ever produced. We're moving heavy into color, and so obviously the color maps. And one of the reasons I got so upset about him telling me no is because I love cartography so much, and I knew that if we went with black and white maps, we couldn't really. It wouldn't be as fun to play on a VTT. It wouldn't be Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds is doing an internal version of it. It would be less likely to get played because it's just not as pretty and colorful and as it deserves to be. So that kind of explains why we did the maps Kickstarter. And something like this weekend is I'm putting more of those maps out to people because those are ready. Maps are ready.
Couple things. One is you guys 3D printed one of the levels.
Yes.
And have been carting that thing around, which is really cool. And 2, for anyone just joining us, we've got the head frog over Frog Out Games here, Bill Webb. We've got Zach Glazer with us, and Jim Wapple as well. Am I saying that wrong, or did I just butcher it?
Wampler, but I don't care.
Wampler. Sorry about that. And Frog Out Games, you have a really interesting setup for the business. You guys, it reminds me of like an accounting firm or a attorney's firm, because you have a bunch of like partners.
Yeah, we do. It all started with of course I own Necromancer Games with a lawyer, with a guy named Clark Peterson back in the 3.0 3.5 days, and then he decided to bail out of the business, and with 4 stuff with D&D, we sort of went away. We didn't completely go away, but we sort of went away. And then the problem was I had like 5 manuscripts that freelancers or others had turned in when we decided to stop publishing because they made 4th edition announcement. And one of these things was 750,000 words or something like that. And it was, it's Greg Vaughn's Slumbering Czar, right? And so in 2010, on April 1st of all things, and no one believed me for like a couple of days, I decided that, I'd already paid I'd paid all the artists, I paid the cartographers, because I felt guilty, because these guys the way that Kinzer and Company and White Wolf did things was they paid on publication. And so since these books weren't going to get published, these artists and writers, people weren't going to get paid. So I went ahead and just paid them all, got in my own pocket, because they did the work, right? And so on April 1st of 2010, I called up my buddy who's an artist, Rick Sardena, and I emailed Robert Altbauer because he's in Austria, so I didn't call him. No Skype back then, right? And I called Greg, and I called Anthony Pryor, and I called Nate Paul, and I said, hey, there's this Pathfinder thing. I don't really understand it because I'm an OD&D player, but Greg does. And why don't I want to try and publish you guys books? So let's try some sort of Patreon thing where we do pre-orders, and if we hit a certain dollar amount, we'll POD the things through Lightning Source and see what happens. And after the first 4 hours, where I got 100 emails from fans and people that I knew from the Necromancer days saying, "Are you serious, or is this an April Fool's joke?" Because that actually happened. We did about $45,000 in sales on those books that first day, and that was just like, holy crap, we have a company again. So Krista and I spent the entire next 2 days incorporating and doing all that stuff. And I didn't have any way to pay these guys yet because we didn't know how much it was going to cost to make the books. So they all came in as equity folks. And then later on, when I bought Matt Finch's company, basically I was looking for a way to do OD&D or first edition type books, because I wanted to be able to use my own stuff, right? And I never graduated to AD&D.
He never graduated Pathfinder even remotely. So
yeah, and I didn't understand it. I'd look at a page. It was like wall of stat, right? And it was like I don't understand. So for a page, one page of Pathfinder for me is like 4 pages of what's usable for me. So, or a quarter of a page rather is what's usable for me. And so I bought a whole bunch of Osric stuff and everything else. I sent a bunch of them to my lawyer and said, which one of these is like squeaky clean, doesn't violate the SRD, that kind of thing. And the one that he said was the best at it was Swords and Wizardry. And so I dug up contact information. I knew a friend. It was a friend of a friend of a friend type thing. And I found Finch and called him up just to, be polite and say, hey, I want to start publishing books using Swords and Wizardry. I know I can. It's in your book. It says how to, but I just wanted to, out of politeness, tell you that I'm going to start doing that and probably kind of in earnest, right? And he was like, well, I really don't like doing this business side of things anyway. What do you think about, just working together and you can take over my company and run it and I'll just write and do legal stuff. And I was, so that he was actually the first partner. And that's the way we agreed to do that was instead of me writing him a check, he came in as an equity partner. And then, then others have joined and left since. And so that's the reason that's it. The funny thing about it is that all the partners are like, hardcore serious gamers. So even though we have a lawyer and we don't have an accountant, I'm sort of the de facto accountant, but I'm a business analyst by training, and I'm actually a chemist, but I'm a business analyst for an engineering firm. So I'm pretty good at business plans and finance and understand that stuff pretty well. And so we've just sort of accumulated the skills. And then we all report to Zach because he's the guy who gets the logistics down. So in a way, we're sort of like a law firm or an accounting firm, but except with the exception of Matt's legal skills, we got none of the training for that. We just had to wing it.
And oodles of money. No one goes into RPGs to get rich.
Well, the best way to make $1 million in an RPG industry is to start with 2.
Absolutely. Let's do a 180 here and talk about MegaHeroes a bit. Jim's been sitting there quiet, patiently, and I know that's what he's here for, so I'd love to hear about MegaHeroes.
I'd be happy to tell you all about it that I can without giving away the store. MegaHeroes is going to be published by Frog Guide Games. It's a superhero RPG, and it will be very modern in style and presentation, but with bringing to it the old school sensibilities that a lot of us love, which to me mainly mean player agency and GM agency instead of a bunch of rules looking up. So it's going to be designed to be a fast play system. It's non-D20 with its own custom game engine that I'm calling the hit crit system. And inspiration wise, that came from a few years of watching how Bill and my friend Tim Kask actually run their D&D games, where they almost never use anything besides a D20 and a D6. This game engine, those are the only 2 dice you need, and you don't even need multiples of them. 1 D20 and 1 D6 will accomplish everything your superhero needs to do. So I think bringing a level of innovation to it. And the reason it wasn't just to sit and do all the number crunching to try and figure out a new game engine, because that's kind of hard. But I did it because I don't think the D20 system, as much as we love it all, has ever really been a good fit for superhero games. I've played a bunch of them back in the day and have all of them. And there's always been a discord to me in trying to take, because D20 is a good engine for lots of genres. Obviously medieval fantasy, obviously post-apocalyptic. But my personal opinion, the best Star Wars system was the D6 one. So, when you jump genres and need to because all the game engine there is to simulate the expected actions and results, right? So what I've done is design a game engine that gives you the super heroic. So if you and your players want to sit down and recreate the Battle of Manhattan in that first Avengers movie, minus the mass scale of it, you can get that kind of action with your characters. It's also a design goal that it's 15-minute character generation, and the players have the option of just rolling that up completely randomly if they're in a big hurry, or choosing power sets.
So I think this is the first time Frog God is going outside of the fantasy genre. Is that correct?
Well, yes, I had to pitch him on it.
Yeah, we delved into Starfinder a little bit, and and we sold some books, and that was fine. And but really, we didn't have a no pun intended, Jim, a champion that really wanted to lead the Starfinder stuff, and it didn't, go nuclear on us. So we decided to kind of bag that. We are doing some space work because Merle Rasmussen came to us and wanted to do a bunch of planets, and so he's our buddy, and so we'll be selling Merle's planets. I'm not sure what we're calling it. We're going to do. Zach may have some insight on that, but he's done some really cool things with that. But yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm a D&D guy. Zach's a D&D guy. Matt's a D&D guy. I think Zach's becoming a superheroes guy after talking to Jim.
This is true.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm excited about with superheroes, and one of the things that made it, as a kid, I didn't like the superheroes games much because it always felt like as a superhero, you didn't ever face any threat. You always knew that with your superpowers, you were able, in the comics, you died, you came back. It didn't seem as, I don't know, it just as, the fear factor level wasn't there. And I think the way that when Jim first explained it to me, and this was a little bit ago, and what made it so intriguing to me was the reputation as being like the motivator and the power source. And I want him to explain that because it's that cool. So
yeah, happy to talk about that. When you design your own game engine, and I'm just a horrible game engine hacker. I think it comes from, doing websites where you have to go in and hack somebody else's PHP or CSS. I stripped the engine all the way down and built it up fresh. And I lost some things in the way. There would be expected tropes in tabletop RPGs that aren't going to be in MegaHeroes. There aren't character classes. There's not experience levels as such. And what I came up with instead was one of your character stats is, or one of your stats is reputation. And reputation takes the place of experience points in that you're awarded it from the GM in recognition of certain actions and problem solving, exactly like Bill was talking about earlier. And you can then, it's an expendable resource, and you can expend it one of two ways. You can use it in the heat of battle to push some of your die rolls. So you're literally, like sometimes, characters in comic books do, you're literally burning down some of your reputation just to win a battle. And then depending on how the battle comes out, you may or may not be awarded it back. And the second thing reputation does is you can hoard it and save it and spend it in larger chunks to buy up your superpowers. And that gives a sort of, like I was just saying, more representative of what goes on in the comic books way of, your first level guy who you rolled up with so many points begins a progression of enhanced powers and gaining powers. I'm kind of giving Zach a crash course. It's like first appearance Iron Man, where he's in the big clunky thing he put together in the cave, through the movie that's getting ready to come out, where he's replaced the arc reactor with some brand new thing that gives him all kinds of more power. Your character in this game, over however long a campaign you run, can begin that march up. So that's reputation. You live and die by your reputation, and the villains have the exact same system in reverse. They have to maintain negative reputation.
I want to jump in real quick and let everybody know, if you're on Facebook watching or over on YouTube watching, if you go into the descriptions, you can find links to Frog God Games, to the Kickstarter, as well as Frog God is a partner of Nerdarchy. They're one of our sponsors. There's a coupon code in there that, if you're going over to their site to check stuff out, you might want to use that and check that out. So you say, it's not a D20 system, but use a D20 and a D6. So can you clarify there?
I don't want to give the whole mechanics away, especially since we're just beginning playtest, and that's where the rubber hits the road. You find out how well your machinations are going to spin out for you. But it's a flip of the normal system in that the hit crit system, the D20 is the hit die, so that will determine if an action succeeds, and then the D6 you would roll at the same time tells you what grade of effect your successful hit had. I actually in my day life, I occasionally do contract work for my brother who runs a medical device company, and I noticed that they do a two-factor risk analysis system. How likely is a failure, and if we have a failure, what degree of problem does that failure cause? So, just like any good creator, I saw that and just stole it. Built it into a game engine.
We are huge proponents of stealing everything for your games. James
Well,
Leslie,
the reason it's a little reverse and upside down, because then that means that the weapon damage, the power damage, all that things are all in this game are all fixed values.
James Leslie wants to know: can you lose reputation if you say accidentally break a building by throwing a car through it?
Well, in the name of GM agency, that would depend on what your individual GM said, but that's exactly the way the system is meant to work. For example, there are no alignments. You're just on your own and going out there. You can, Superman it if you want to, and always consider everything, unless you're in Superman in a J.J. Abrams movie, and then you can kill some people. Or you can be Spider-Man and, run the ragged edge of, I think I'm doing good, but it has unfortunate bad effects.
And as for Zach's comment about superhero games, feeling like there's never any threat, I just want to say, spoiler if you guys care about such things, but in our game that finished up Monday, one of the characters, we finished one of the characters trapped in the dark dimension, and my character has been taken over by a vampire. And is probably a vampire.
I want to follow that up with my experience with him was about when I was all 14. And so that wasn't an expert statement by a role-playing guy who knows his superheroes. That's by a guy who didn't really read comics.
Yeah.
And when he played the game, played it like he was playing Christopher Reeve and Superman. So that wasn't an expert statement, but it explains where I was coming from.
well, that's how I got into reading, and reading comics was through role-playing games, their original yellow box Marvel Superheroes game. So
Me too. I started like last week.
Well, I mean, at the risk of sounding arrogant, because I don't mean it that way. If you know me personally, I'm as sincere as a heart attack. We played Champions in the day and all the other games. This is no bang on them, but I've never found one that I'm happy with. So like any good creator, artist, writer, I start with, well, what has not made me happy about these various superhero RPGs, and let's fix it. So that's the place I'm coming from.
No, I totally get that, because we I joined a game of Heroes Unlimited, and I was like, oh, this is awful. And literally, I was ready to try and convince them to go back to playing the original Marvel Superheroes game, because I thought it was better than the Heroes Unlimited. And then we started playing around with Mutants and Masterminds, which does a pretty good job, but it's very difficult to learn on the front end. It plays easy, and it is a D20 system. And with each edition, they got away from D20 and, the D&D isms, and it got better, which you're starting from that and being like, this is a superhero, so it needs to be treated like that. Where do you think
with all due respect for personal playstyle preferences, because you and I can have a very rational back and forth discussion and debate about, does rule mechanic XY simulate action AB better or worse than another rule mechanic? You and I can have perfectly rational discussion about that, but playstyle preference is something that, although people love to argue about it, you can't really argue about it. I mean, if your idea of a good time playing medieval fantasy is you and your party roll through the dungeon like no tomorrow, then Pathfinder is a better system for you than Dungeon Crawl Classics, where you take your life in a hand. If you like the high risk, high reward, then Swords and Wizardry or something like that is going to be your cup of tea. And God love me, what I'm trying to do is take thesis and antithesis and create a synthesis with this particular game.
Yeah.
So what are some key points for you to hit?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Go ahead, Jim.
What do you feel like are some key points that you need to hit in a superheroes RPG to make it feel like, comic books?
Well, it has to appeal to all age groups. So Lee Kirby like me, it can't be all Lee Kirby, comics from the 70s and the 60s, because that cuts out the kids reading comic books today. And I believe the golden mean to shoot for are those Marvel movies. If you can simulate what's going on in those Marvel movies pretty good, hit all the expected comic book tropes over, at least the last 50 years of comics, and not leave anybody out, you've done it. And I'm writing the game to give the GM that ability. I want to run, dark noir, hand combat, fine. I want to run high power cosmic, fine.
And that is the balancing acts of a Supers game, because they do kind of encompass a lot of different elements. Even more so than I think, most genres.
Fortunately for me, I adore playing wizards and magic users, and have my hands around a couple different magic systems. And it's not like I'm adapting any of those from D20 games, but I've got what I think is a pretty modular and snap lock way of handling the powers and the power sets. While, so if you want to go through and create, a guy who's on fire and shoots flame, that's real fast. If you have, if you're just Deadpool's my favorite character, I just want to do my own version of Deadpool, you have the option to cherry pick your powers to create what you want.
And I do want to say, and Bill will back me up on this, is that this pitch was about 15 seconds. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Jim is the guy to do this because he's been reading comic books longer than I've been alive. And
sorry.
It's true. No, but he loves the kind of games that we like to promote. Even our 5th edition games, we want them to be fast and deadly, and we want them to be exciting. And he had all these things in a row. But Bill, was it about 15 seconds? You said yes.
Well, the pitch, obviously I like stuff that people can learn how to play fast, that runs fast and relies on a lot of storytelling more than on 50 calculations to figure out what happened. And when Jim talked about those aspects of it, I looked at Zach and said, "Do you want to do this?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, we're good." Because what Jim just explained is basically what he explained to me. And he spent 30 seconds talking. I thought about it for 15 seconds, looked at Zach. Zach nodded his head, and I said, "All right." Because it made sense to me to have a game where, I'm as everybody knows, obviously with Swords and Wizardry and Swords and Wizardry Light and all that other stuff. I want the entry point for new gamers to be an easy thing to do and not something they have to study for a month before they can actually play their first game. Or you lose people if you do that, I think. And the old grognards like me can learn just about anything. I mean, if you can play Axis and Allies, or Gleam of Bayonets, you could probably play any game out there. But not everybody has that. And so, we're getting old, and I want games that, a 12-year-old girl or a 12-year-old boy can pick up and learn how to play in less than an hour. And then sure, you spend a lot of time mastering that, and you can expand on it or grow on it or, add new material to it. But something that is an easy entry point. And a couple stories. We'll do Uncle Billy's story hour here for a second, but a couple stories about that are there are 2 gals who have been going to conventions with their families for a long time. One of them for about 35 years, and then she'd run off to the spa, and her husband and her two sons would play D&D or do whatever they were going to do. And I'd gotten to know her over the years because her family were regulars in my and Matt's games. And 2.5 years ago, Zach, was it Game Hole 2 years ago?
There's 2.
She came by the booth, and we were selling some gemstone dice. We bought a bunch of those to draw people to the booth. We bought a bunch of those really fancy, like
$100 dice.
Shout out to Metallic
Dice.
Yeah, well, these things are expensive, right? But they're made out of like, amethyst and rose quartz and lapis lazuli and she just really wanted a set of those pink rose quartz dice. And I was like, well, okay, but I'll sell you one, Alberta, but you got to learn how to play the game. She's, my sons and their father played for 35 years. And I just it's so confusing and so complicated. So I handed her a Swords Wizardry Light and said, okay, go away for half an hour. Come back. Tell me if you don't understand this. She sort of sheepishly walked back to the table and she goes, okay, I understand it. What do I do now? And I was like, conveniently, my son is running a game for folks who haven't played before in about a half an hour. And so, I'd had the same conversation with several folks. Now, Alberta's probably 60 and had never played D&D before. And she now is like the most raging fanatic at conventions. It's hilarious. We had to Skype her into the Sunday night game in Dallas because she had to fly home. So she actually Skyped in on an iPad to play so she wouldn't miss the last Sword and Wizardry game of the weekend. And I like seeing stuff like that happen. It's sort of why I do this, right? I mean, it's you bringing people into the hobby is important to me, and so I'm pretty excited about what Jim's doing because I think it'll help people. It'll bring people into the role playing game hobby, and it'll still offer a great game for guys who've been doing it for 40 years, like I have.
Now we have a good question in the comments from Fraginator.
Great name.
Yeah, is this a game that someone who knows very little about comics can play without getting confused?
Sure. I mean, it would be a total failure if you couldn't just come to it and go, okay, I'm a fan of Supergirl and the CW. How do I do that with these rules? You know, a lot of people that watch Supergirl and the Flash have never read a comic book in their life.
So for anyone just jumping in and joining us now, Rappan Athuk Reborn is a Kickstarter going on right now for 5e for a mega dungeon that was previously you guys had done it in Pathfinder. Right now we're talking about MegaHeroes, which is a superhero RPG that was just announced at GaryCon. So I know some people are looking for information on it and they can't find it. That's because there really isn't any yet.
Yeah, it's Google proof right now.
it's just been announced.
They only announced it last week, so yeah, there's that.
So Cardboard Fortress has some questions. He's actually also a game designer for tabletop games. Matter of fact, whenever he comes up, I always point out his stuff. Laser Riders is one of their games that they did.
Well, nice.
It's basically Tron cycles on your table. It's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Oh, that sounds cool, man.
I want to buy one now. That's awesome.
What's it called again?
Laser Riders.
Laser Riders. Okay, it's good to know.
When we played the playtest, I was like, "How is this not already a thing? How has no one not done this already?"
No, that's the first thing I thought too. When you said it, I'm like, I want to play right now. That's awesome.
But
I wrote it down, guys. I got it.
Yeah,
got it.
All right, what's his question now? So we praise his idea so much. What's his question?
Are the characters' powers more of a taken from a pre-created list or create with component style? Is it a pay with some allotment of creation point system? Are there flaws and drawbacks?
Flaws and drawbacks, I'm not decided on yet. I'm saving that for if I need it after I get the powers all ironed out. But the neither of those two things. It's if somebody else has solved a problem and I see it out there, I'm going to grab it and fix it. As counterintuitive as this will sound, what was a lot of people's objection to 4E. My nephews were in high school. They played the hell out of 4E. They were fine with it, but I sat down and played it, and they had tried to turn my D&D into World of Warcraft. They'd taken a lot of cues from massive multiplayer online games, and that didn't work out so good for 4E. But I played for years until they shut the servers down on more called City of Heroes. And in the game design for City of Heroes, they figured out how to fence off and make the powers and power sets modular. It would look like a bee's nest of Venn diagrams, but it worked, and it worked great. So my power system is going to be modeled very closely on that idea, obviously not their specific power sets.
So almost like an effect-based system?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because I've played several different ones where you have Heroes Unlimited where it's just a huge list of powers and they're not all created equally. Marvel Superheroes and the Ultimate Powers book was the same way. Mutants and Masterminds is another effect-based system where it doesn't actually matter what the power is. It's just this is what it does, and then you add descriptors to kind of figure it out. So
that's one way to do it that they explored a little bit is you have the power that does X damage and you skin it however you want. But I've got both editions of Mutants and Masterminds, and it's wonderfully written and it's a great system. But I don't want to write a game that's a bunch of page flipping to find out how things do, because if you're sitting here with your iPad doing this, or you're having to roll a whole shoebox of D6s at once like in Champions, that every minute you're doing that, you're not role playing.
Plus, Bill won't play it. So,
I played Champions a couple of times. About the time the guy told me to roll 40 dice, they lost me.
When I was a teenager, that was fun. I don't enjoy it anymore.
Yeah.
So you're getting some City of Heroes love in the comments. That is one of the few MMOs I played for a little bit briefly. I've had to stay away from video games. It's a trap.
It sucks. I mean, I have more VR headsets than I do have heads, and I probably get about 5 minutes in a week. Just because I'm so busy with this, and if I made that my life, I wouldn't get to do this part of it. So I hear you. I feel your pain.
Also, I feel like the City of Heroes, one of the best parts of that was just the character creation anyway. Just making tons and tons of characters and not really playing it.
Yeah. The video games are scary. Zach showed me, I'm an avid World War II tabletop tank battle guy. So I played Flames of War forever and that kind of thing. And Zach showed up here with a they made a video game. It's called something or other. I think it's Battlefield.
Combat Mission.
But it's the Flames of War engine. And I looked at that and he's like, you should really download this. And I was just like, no way. I cannot have that on my computer.
It's probably best.
I just can't. I can't do it, or I'll never get anything done. And so they scare me too. Video games do. I've done my share of playing video games.
Plus, you can't use a computer that well.
Yeah, not that hard. But yeah.
So you also wanted to talk about second edition Pathfinder as well.
Yeah, and I'm gonna preface this by we don't know much because weren't told much, but we do have some things that I know Bill wanted to say, and a couple of things for our players and our fans that have bought our Pathfinder material that we're going to do to while we're indecisive or don't know, not leave them hanging. So I'm going to let Bill talk about that a little bit. But
yeah, well, I mean, first of all, Pathfinder's been pretty good to us over the years. I mean, sure, sales fell off quite a bit when 5e came out, and 5e really is our main business focus right now on the business side. We'll never stop publishing for Swords and Wizardry because Matt and I own the majority of the company and both play Swords and Wizardry. But we were a little blindsided by this. We didn't see it coming. We found out when everybody else did. We canceled one Kickstarter that was a Pathfinder only product, and we're going to repurpose that material and make sure the author and the artist. Well, I've already paid all the artists and cartographers, but make sure the author gets taken care of so he's not out his time. Yeah, it was a little surprising. We have a couple of big projects coming up that we can't produce for our Pathfinder fans, and it kind of that makes me a little bit sad, but we don't know what the rules are, so I can't, like City of Brass, which is going to be our next big book, and I'll talk about that at the very end on the closing comments a little bit more, but we were planning on doing that in all three versions, but now we can't because we're not going to produce a Pathfinder 1.0 book that's a gigantic 500-page extra planar thing this year for something that we're not going to know what the rules are. And so my only disappointment in it is that, we have a lot of guys who've been super loyal Pathfinder fans and have been buying Pathfinder books from us since we started the company. And so we're not going to be able to support them for a while. We are going to finish with Rappan Athuk, and they'll have a Pathfinder 1.0 version for that because we've already committed to that.
For the extra levels, I need to make it real.
The extra levels only, yeah, not for the whole thing. I didn't want to sell them the same book 3 times, so if it wasn't the new material, we didn't put it in there. But so we're going to go on hiatus for Pathfinder for a while. We're going to wait and see what the rule system looks like when it's finalized, and then we may or may not continue to support that. In the interim, I had a guy who bought $1,100 worth of books about a month ago for Pathfinder, and then they announced that they're dropping 1.0 as a production series, and I felt kind of bad about that. And I've got at least 40 or 50 customers who literally bought every single book we've ever produced for Pathfinder. So we kind of talked it over, and we're like, well, this all spawned off one gal she was actually our third customer when we opened Frog God Games in 2010. She posted on the online on the Facebook that showed 3 stacks taller than her of Pathfinder books, including all of ours. So probably 2 stacks were ours and 1 stack was everybody else's. We make really thick books, and was really upset that she had all this stuff that was no longer going to be supported. So what we're going to do is I can't afford to replace everybody's books with 5th edition or with Swords and Wizardry books in real books. But for those of you who have in your library on our website, or if you can prove you show us a photograph that I bought this book, we will give away a free PDF of either a 5th edition book or a Swords and Wizardry book to any of our prior customers.
If we have it, and that's for all of them. If you've been on a Kickstarter for us all the way back to, well, I guess with like something like Coastal Thunder Kingdom, but stuff you've bought, and you have $1,000 in books and PDFs of Frog God stuff for Pathfinder 1.0, and if you just want to look at the 5e version of the Swords and Wizardry version, we don't want to leave you behind. We don't want your investment to be nothing with us because you guys matter a ton. And we know that this is a lot of work for a guy named Michael Battalato who does our customer service, and we like making him work. It's one of our favorite things.
Totally.
But we will do that. It may take a couple of weeks and such for us to catch up with everything. But people who own a book and either can show us a picture of them with the book or they have it in our library with us, We can't do it on OBS, and so there we can talk, but we can't just provide it to you on OBS itself. So we will, though, do that for you and take care of it, and you can take a look at the other stuff. We wish that we had a good answer for the Pathfinder 2.0 or what we're doing with that. We don't. They say there's some compatibility. I don't know. We can't see. Guys from the playtest, and they really liked the playtest. It was pretty smooth. It was a lot more like 5e. But we don't know. And without knowing, we don't want to leave anybody in the lurch, because we like you guys.
Yeah, exactly. And so then at some point soon, we've sort of got to do inventory again mid-year, which is a little bit weird. And we're going to figure out, what can we discount, that kind of thing. And we're going to, folks want to, upgrade to a 5e book or a Sword and Wizardry book, or I don't know if it's upgrade, but, change. I'm going to try and work out some kind of discount deal for folks who have the Pathfinder Classic or Pathfinder 1.0 stuff,
and they want to have an actual book if they're not PDF people.
I don't know what that's going to consist of yet, but we're definitely going to make an effort that direction, and to try and the fans are the reason we're in business, and while we don't make a lot of money, at least pays for vacations and conventions, which is pretty cool. So they help us out. We want to try and give a little bit of that back if that's something that they're interested in doing.
Yeah, kudos to you guys, and others are saying it in the chat as well, for you guys making the effort to do that. It is kind of weird because part of Pathfinder's success early on, maybe not so much now because they've been around for 10 years, was people's anger over Wizards of the Coast coming out with a new edition and changing the game. So so as us that were around for that, I kind of go, I wonder how those people are going to feel now, because they felt betrayed by Wizards of the Coast. So, which I don't really care. Like, it's not that I don't care, but I accept that game companies and games are going to evolve and they're going to change things. And even if you didn't like 4th edition, I don't believe anyone sets out to make a shitty game. Like,
no. Right. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, "Let me blow up my product line."
Yeah. How can I break this and make everyone hate me?
Paizo, I know Paizo, and I've worked with them long enough over the years, and I've known some of them for longer than I've been in business. They won't make a shitty game. The game will be good. It's just it's a matter of some of our customers anyway, and their customers are up to them, but some of our customers have invested a lot of money into version 1, and if they're going to take a different direction, we want to accommodate that as much as we can. I mean, we're not greedy, and we want everybody to keep playing these games, and I don't want to not get for the game that they're playing. So, I want them. I want to keep doing this until I'm in a nursing home. Then my daughter. Well, before then, my daughter will be running the company probably. But the fact that people actually buy our stuff is so cool that I don't want to leave them in the lurch if they got something that they aren't interested in using anymore. And so that's really important to us.
So Cardboard Fortress had another question about MegaHeroes. Now, I understand basically this is in development. You guys are designing it now, just announced it. It's coming. So his question is, what is the crunch level you're shooting from? And he's using examples like White Wolf level, Apocalypse World, Fate, D&D.
Not Fate. No, certainly no crunchier than, say, Swords and Wizardry. Because the whole design goal is fast play, fast action. So as little crunch as possible, while still supporting some good meat on the bones. Because I don't want to. I mean, I want to do a version of Super RPG that 12 and 14-year-olds can sit down and learn themselves, like Redbox D&D. But if it's not good and crunchy, then old 50-something comic book fans like me and some of the people in between won't enjoy the game. I mean, they're what is that game? Icons that also I believe Steve Kinson wrote, the Mutants and Masterminds guy. It's a good little rule set, and it's super light and super not crunchy, and there's not enough there for me to fully enjoy my personal playstyle preferences. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe somewhere between Icons and M&M.
Yeah, that's a pretty wide swath, but yeah, in between there.
Well, I'm definitely curious to see what you guys come up with. I love checking out new rule systems, new sets, and Supers is probably my second favorite genre to play outside of fantasy.
I appreciate that, and I suspect there are lots of Dungeoneers who are closet comic book fans that will enjoy this.
You know,
And if we do our job right, we will get them and recruit some of the hardcore, Dungeoneers who haven't swung Thor's hammer yet or clocked somebody with a suit of power armor.
I make the joke that I had to give up comic books because a crack addiction would have been cheaper. So like I love like that we're getting this golden age of superhero movies where I kind of get my fix without having to empty my wallet every week, and every once in a while I'll just pick up like a graphic novel.
That was actually part of my pitch. I'm like, the great thing about this game is Marvel Studios is going to do a multi-million-dollar commercial for us about every 4 months.
Yep.
Are you planning on making a setting to go along with it?
The home setting right now is called Skyline City because I'm from Cincinnati, and I haven't really done much more than outline that. But yeah, there'll be home settings, and I'm sure down the road, setting books and things like that. God's willing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm laughing at one of the comments.
Well, I can't see the comments. I want to laugh too.
No one says you have to make a shitty game. Tell that to the designers of, and I'll leave off the name.
Okay.
So, is there anything else you guys in the chat you want to ask? Just put question before it, and we will get to your question. We've got like 7 minutes or so left.
We do want to talk about a couple other upcoming things just to make people aware. We finished the Tome of Horrors, and the Rappan Athuk is going to wind up, and those will be submitted to the publisher the printer pretty soon. We have the City of Brass that Bill mentioned. That's an extra planar, real. I'm real excited about it. The Galissa Faden is doing the cartography, and it's going to be great. We are doing a 2.0 rule set of the old game Bunnies and Burrows, written by the same two guys. That's coming fairly soon. We've seen the manuscript of that. It's Watership Down, man. That's Nature Red and Tooth and Claw. It sounds kind of cutesy and funny, but his mechanic for ripping with your teeth other rabbits is hardcore, man. It's like a power in 5e. It's something else. But for fans of that kind of game, something a little bit different, it's really neat. I've played some of the 2.0 rules already at one of the cons, but that's coming. In the fall, we have the campaign world that we've been promising since about, 2010, way before I was a customer, let alone a partner. That's coming. Beautiful map. We have the map for it. It's gorgeous. That will be probably September, we think. But, this changes a little bit. We have a schedule. And out into 2019, we have other things that I think everybody will be really excited about. But we hate to talk about it that long. But we got a pretty full schedule. We got a pretty full staff of people working on it. So you've seen a bunch of Kickstarters from us, but those are in a state where they're close to done when they start. They're already written, of course, when they start, but they're close to finished. And there's about a month or so into it, and then they go out. And so you're going to see a lot of stuff from us, but we're excited. And then we have the Humble Bundles coming up again. Bill will talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So the Humble Bundle, that's one of the things. Those of you who don't know, I live in a county that's has a huge Navy presence, and I also grew up as an Air Force brat, and saw a lot of real extreme poverty among enlisted families. And so one of the two charities we supported last time was and the first time as well, and this time as well, is the Navy Marine Corps Relief Fund, and we've raised almost $100,000 for those guys over the last 2 years. And we're going to be, hopefully raising another 100,000 over the next 12 months as well. We also did some charity donation, about $50,000, 48, I think, for clean water. And the focus on that is up in the Detroit area, of course, because they've had so many issues up there. And so one of the things we feel really strongly about as a group, we talk about this every meeting in June, is what are we going to do for charity this year? We've supported Extra Life and supported a few other charities as well, but we sort of focused our efforts on the military enlisted folks through Navy Marine Corps Relief Fund, and it's a 5-star charity. They have less than 10% overhead, and the interesting thing is a couple of our fans and the mayor of the city of Bremerton actually recommended them to me because a couple of our fans were in the Navy or in the Marines and had actually needed their help before, and they helped them out. It kind of avoids having our servicemen having to go to, one of those predatory loan places, payroll loan things or something to feed their family. And I feel really strongly about that, and we feel really strongly as a group about giving something back to those guys.
And you get a ton of really great stuff for cheap. I want to add that just because that is exciting, because we get to see products that go into so many hands and get played, and all for a good cause. So, and that's coming as well. We got that, and so that MegaHeroes and various other things that are on the timeline. And MegaHeroes in probably November, we think, and we have a logo for it. It's great. There's a picture of it on the Frog God Gauge Facebook page of the MegaHeroes.
I do want to throw a shout out to a couple other companies that have partnered in with us on the charitable giving, and first and foremost, Kobold Press. Those of you who don't know that Wolfgang and I are really close friends, now you know. I actually sleep at his house, work in the city, and we do his fulfillment. So when you get your books and it's wrong, it's probably my fault or my daughter's fault or her boyfriend's fault or my wife's fault. Then we always make it right. And then also Steve Chenault at Trollord Games has joined up with us for this next bundle, along with Wolfgang and Alex Kammer from Gamepole Publishing. And those folks deserve some credit in this too, because it's been really good. But yeah, both of the next two Humble bundles are going to be 5th edition books. And they are a heck of a deal. You get, $400 worth of stuff for about $25 or something in PDFs, and they're really a good deal.
I can attest to that. We actually did it. We were actually in the process of doing a review series on Deep Magic from Kobold Press, and pretty much it's because we picked up the Humble bundle, and we're like, well, we got all these books, let's review some of them. And the Deep Magic are really nice because they're just real quick reads that we can dive into fast.
Yeah, our books aren't usually as fast to reads. The Blight is like 900 and some pages, and so with 7 or 12 ancillary products that support it. So we do know that our stuff is sometimes a little hard to get a fair review of, but Kobold Press's Deep Magic is great, though.
Blight, Bardgate, I'm looking at you guys. So Truemate wanted to know, he would love to hear more about the City of Brass.
Okay, I'd love to talk
there you
go. It is completely written. It's in editing and conversion right now. The art has been commissioned, and the cartography has been commissioned. We're going to do a Kickstarter for that June or July. I think we haven't completely decided yet. We're going to kind of time it with a couple other things. The main author, there are multiple authors on this that have contributed, but the main author is a guy named Casey Christopherson, who did the City of Brass work for me back in 2004.
Bardgate too.
Yeah, it's not the same. It is, parts of it are the same book, but I think we had him add like 150,000 words to it. It's going to be big, full color, giant sultans of Efreet with flaming swords chopping people in half. And Alyssa Faden's doing the cartography for that as well. It's mighty impressive. And Casey's working with the team right now, including Edwin Nagy, and I think Anthony Pryor's involved in that, and who else? Jeff Harkness and Alyssa and Artem Shukayev and
Michael Sturgos is going to do some of the art as well, and he's doing some of the horrors art. We'll have others as well. I know Terry Pavlov's got more than a few that we've done. So these are all A-list guys, man.
It's going to be a big now 5th edition Sword and Wizardry versions of somewhere between 400 and 600 page book. And it'll be good. And Casey, for those of you who aren't familiar with his work, I'm surprised. I'd be shocked if you've been buying books for the last 20 some odd years. I think he's probably got about 100 books he's written between us and Trollord Games and 3 or 4 other companies. He's an incredibly prolific writer. He helped me with Sword of Air. He wrote Bard's Gate for us. He wrote most of the Castles and Crusades adventures, including their combat, their mass combat system, which is, I don't remember the name of it, so forgive me, Steve Chenault. But the guy is good. His mechanics are good. His storylines are good. And there's probably nobody I've ever worked with that has a better feel for, epic type stuff, which an extra planar adventure like that is going to be. It's, obviously it's a high level deal.
He's real cool too. Just if you meet him at a con or anywhere else, he's just a great guy. Yeah. And we'll be at the North Texas RPG Con here in June, because that's where we have our annual meeting. And Casey was there. If you got anybody here is going to the North Texas Con, meet him, talk to him. He'll tell you all about the City of Brass, I assure you. And he's just a great and cool guy to have around. And with the kind of staff we have on City of Brass, you guys should all be real excited about it.
Yeah, the fact he kind of looks like Thor doesn't hurt either. So you'll know who he is.
That's true. He does look like Thor.
He's a high school. His day job is he's a high school art teacher in Wichita, Kansas, and he's actually hooked us up with a number of our artists, which has been awesome because he's found prodigies for us, including Art Shukaya, who's done most of the Lost Lands covers. That
kind of dovetails into Robert Mitchell's question, and he wants to know how you guys go about choosing artists.
Well, some of them come like you just said. I can answer this because I do that part of it. Some of it comes through, like Bill said, Casey picks some ones, people he's known, because Bill's been in the industry for a long, long, long time. But lately, I have we add people to the art as we ramp up production. We really are ramping it up. People email us directly to blind solicitations, and we've picked up 3 or 4 people that way. I've met a couple people at conventions. Picked up a couple that way. We usually start out with smaller stuff, like just creature stuff with Tome of Horrors or small illustrations. But we have guys who started doing that only a few months ago, and one of them just did a cover for us. And so if people do art and they're interested, I look at portfolios all the time. Sometimes you could go a year and no one will hear, you won't hear a thing, and then we'll need you. And so I encourage people who are artists to at least get in touch with me. So
the keys on that are, you show up, you deliver on time, you do good quality work. We're going to keep using you a lot. I mean, I can't speak highly enough about our pool of artists we've got as our main guys right now. Terry Pavlett is just above and beyond the pale, man. He pulls all-nighters for us sometimes when we get in a pinch. Colin Chan, same way. And
Josh Stewart is doing the
Josh Stewart.
Michael Sergo. Dan Hauser's doing some work for us as well. We have a lot of guys that are just are good, but we never have enough. So if that's what you're asking how we do it, that's how it's done.
So in the chat, DM Don has been waving the Frog God banner the whole time we've been chatting. He runs Drunks and Dragons out of Philadelphia, and you guys have hooked him up with some support in the past, and they're very appreciative of that.
And we love to make sure that we can get material to people who run events and people who run, especially in schools, libraries. We have the reason we created Swords of Wizardry Light was so Bill would quit sending full Swords of Wizardry books to these places, but he still sends them there. It didn't solve that problem, but it did make a nice light rules. But we're glad to have helped them, and he was really cool when he emailed me and contacted me. I'm glad he appreciates the stuff. So.
Snyder Fan 5, when and where do you plan on playtesting MegaHeroes?
Well, starting in about a month with my home group, and then we'll see how it goes from there.
Will you be doing any open play testing later on?
Yes, but I cannot reveal the details at this time. Is that fair?
Fair enough. That is always like the hardest part, I think, for a lot of game designers. You guys aren't going to have a problem. You have a huge pool to draw from, having been around for a little while.
A year or two.
Yeah. I think that I guess we had talked about that with one of the indie game designers we had on about some kind of network for playtesters.
Well, I mean, I do want to say, and every designer worth his salt will already agree with this. I mean, you have to play test it at home, and then you have to get it out to groups and judges that have no connection to you whatsoever, to go let them kick the tires and see what comes back, and then you got to listen to the feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess
I'm sorry, that was maybe perhaps too obvious, but it's some people skip some of those steps,
and I guess
we all have under deadline pressure.
In this day and age, like with so much stuff being streamed and recorded, I imagine that it kind of makes it a lot easier, because it's one thing for someone to tell you their feedback, but it's another to watch and see how they play. as a fly on the wall. And
we did the Rappan Athuk 5, some of that play testing online, streams on Twitch, and it's possible with Jim's involvement we may see some of that as well. But it all depends on where we get at and where we're at. So we know that we want to show you something that you're be close to what you see. We don't necessarily want you to see the alpha test stuff because I think Jim might actually kill me, and I don't want that. I'm just my friend.
So Snyder Fam 5 wants to know where to find you guys and follow you guys on social media.
Facebook, we have a big presence. We have a Facebook page there. We have a whole group for Rappan Athuk and Rappan Athuk maps. We'll have a MegaHeroes one probably pretty soon. We can be found on Twitch at Frog God Games. We can be found on YouTube channel. We're the same. I can be seen, Matt Finch and I do videos, Matt mostly, but I come on once in a while, of live stream games. It's like Swords and Wizardry in 5e on Uncle Matt's D&D studio, he calls it, on YouTube. That's got 1,000 subscribers, and it's pretty exciting. He actually does a really cool walkthrough of Zelkor's Ferry from Rappan Athuk that I'm going to post up here again soon, so you can get it's with miniatures and terrain and a camera. It's like it's literally like a character's eye view walking through town. It's wild. So with that, Fat Dragon Games has some information about the 3D print model you mentioned. The 3D print kit is available on without the printer, obviously, on the Rappan Athuk Kickstarter. So those of you who've seen those pictures, because if you go to our website, the Frog Game site, you'll see a ton of those. At GaryCon, we had 2 of them set up next to each other, and we had so much feedback from that. And so you'll see those, and you can get those pieces on the Kickstarter itself. So,
yeah. Another thing you can do is go to our website and create an account it's froggodgames.com, surprisingly enough, and then Zach sends out 2-3 times a month. So we're not going to spam you, but he sends out 2-3 times a month. He'll send out a newsletter called the Rana Reader. Hang on, I got a little bat signal. Called the Rana Reader, that'll have news and information and sort of what's going on with Kickstarters. And hang on, I gotta plug my iPad in. And other information about ourselves and some of our industry partners that we work with. And we try not to make it too spammy. We try not to send it too often because we know how everybody loves that.
And I'm real busy, so it doesn't always go out as often as we'd like.
Right.
But that's another way to keep up with us, and that actually is the direct link into purchasing and products. But we're available everywhere. We have a Twitter account, but we don't actually. It's just actually loops from our Facebook account because we don't know the password.
Right.
So but that pretty much covers it. We don't do a lot of G+ because the bandwidth for that usually is me, and I'm just one guy. But on Facebook we've got Patrick Pilgrim and Skeeter Green and Matt Finch and Bill's on there and Jim's on there and Alyssa's on there who does our maps. She doesn't directly talk about us all the time, but you see the people that we are and we work with. We're very visible there.
Yeah.
So
the last pitch for signing up for an account on our website, there's a bunch of free stuff. And also with those Rana Readers usually comes, not every time, but very frequently comes a discount coupon that we put in our newsletters that'll give you a code if you're one of our signed up customers, that'll get you some sort of perk.
And that's where you're going to get the free PDFs if you're a Pathfinder customer for 5 years. Swords of Wizardry is through our account there. So that's the kind of thing that interests you. And if you want to get in touch with us about the Pathfinder 2.0 and the PDF, you can talk to me if you like, Zach at froggodgames.com. But the guy is going to make that happen is Mike at froggodgames.com. This guy named Mike Ballotto who does our customer service work. And he is going to do lion's share of this work, and he will take care of you. It may take a couple of weeks, but if that's something that you've heard that you've been a customer of ours and are interested, by all means, if you still play Pathfinder 1.0 and you want to keep doing so, we have a great selection, real cheap online.
Yeah, we do.
Because we do want to get through our inventory. We want to make sure it gets played, because what we don't want is for Matt Finch's idea to wood chip and write it off. We don't.
Right.
We actually want to see it played because they're great stuff. It's really good games. It's really good material. A lot of it's in black and white, but the words are deep and they are copious. We have very big books.
You guys did.
One other thing I failed to mention that's actually really relevant to that is, as everybody or a lot of people probably know, we didn't make everything for 5e because, of course, we started the company before 5e came out. I do have Matt working right now on how to convert Swords and Wizardry to 5e. So for the books that came out before 5e, a Sword and Wizardry book, you could get it, and Matt will have a 5 or 10 page write up. it's really not a very hard conversion from Swords and Wizardry to 5e. So that's one of the things we're going to be putting up as a freebie that everybody can get. And so if they buy a copy of, I don't know,
Cults of the Sundered Kingdoms.
Yeah, Cults of the Sundered Kingdoms for Swords and Wizardry. There'll be a how-to use it for 5e, and that way, without having to reprint a whole book and relay out a whole book and reconvert a whole book that we put out 3 or 4 years ago before 5th edition existed, you'll be able to use those books.
And so, if you have the Pathfinder version, we will be able to get you the Swords and Wizardry copy if that's what you wanted, even though we don't have a 5e equivalent. So that's
right.
That's where we're going. You were about to say something, David.
Yeah, you guys had a big Pathfinder sale at GaryCon.
Yeah. Let me preface that as Mike Ballal and I came up with that one night because I told him that we had just been returned a bunch of books from the distributor we had at the time, and we all of a sudden had we had no copies of something. We had 500, and so I'm like, man, this is like hamburger. We had to sell it by the pound, and well, ding, the little light bulb went on. Mike said we need to get a scale, and so we did. And we had a bunch of books of Pathfinder up in our warehouse we keep in Wisconsin for Gamehole Con and GaryCon. And we must have had 400 pounds of it at least. And we left it, we weighed it, and it was about 5 pounds left. So we were selling it by the pound. Yes, it was tongue in cheek. It helped a lot that I felt kind of bad about it until they announced the Pathfinder 2.0 and didn't tell us. Then suddenly I was happy to sell it by the pound just because not knowing. We already had enough to do that, but now it was something we really wanted to make sure it got out there before we did have to destroy it. So, yes, Pathfinder by the pound was a thing. And go to Gamehole.
There will be very large sales announced pretty soon in a number of venues on Pathfinder material. Because again, I don't want to just write this stuff off. If somebody's going to use it, I want them to have it. And we're going to be selling some of this stuff at or below cost. Just so that I don't want to throw it away and write it off.
It would be to our advantage. Actually, it would be to our advantage to actually write some of it off rather than get it out there. But we are gamers first, and to be honest with you, we would all of us rather see it played before the Matt Finch idea of the chipper comes in. He wants to use a wood chipper really bad. He lives in Houston. I guess very many chances. So we want to save it. We want everybody to be able to get a chance to play it.
Well, here's what you do.
Already on clearance, but it'll be even on more clearance probably tomorrow. So
if you do the wood chipper idea, film it and put it on your YouTube channel. Maybe live stream it on Twitch.
We'll live stream on Nerdarchy.
We would. Because I've already got 2 total fails on that. One of them is when I tested those bindings, and I know, Dave, you've heard the story, but for the viewers who haven't heard it, was the way we got for those of you who don't know, we library bind things. I can pick up a 500-page, $400 leather book and shake it by the cover, and it won't break, right? And so our books never fall apart.
I hate it every time it does it, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah, if they do, I'll replace it for free. But the way I selected our binders was I got test copies from about a dozen printers. I think it was actually 10. And I went out and hit him with a baseball bat, and I didn't fail it. I didn't film it, man. It was the dumbest thing I ever did. And I picked the 2 printers that we work with. Were the ones that the covers came off and the books bent, and some of the string failed a little bit, but the books didn't come apart. And so I hired those 2 printers, and we do pay a lot of extra money for our printing and our binding because of that. But our books are, they should last. Your grandchildren should have them, and they should still work.
And we'll replace ones that are ruined. But that's really important to Bill. He's a bookbind nerd. But honestly, and that's one of the other reasons why we're willing to do the PDFs for the Pathfinder, why we're still in the mode to determine, is because our books are expensive because we make them that way. We spend a lot of money to keep them the absolute best they can be made, which is why we have an international print on demand, but we don't push it super hard because we can't guarantee the quality like we can with the books we produce for the Kickstarters, et cetera. And so we should film that. If we do that, we will.
Yeah. So I mean, you pay $100 for a book, man. It's got to be a really high quality deal, or else why would you pay $100 for it? So I'm a firm believer. You get hundreds of hours out of these things, and if you open the thing 20 times and it breaks in half, the customer's gonna be really unhappy.
Rightfully so too.
My understanding is you also did another test for your book.
Yeah.
A little less orthodox.
Is that PC enough to talk about? I guess so. for those of you who don't know, I live way out in the country, and I've got a gun range in my backyard, and I hunt and I target shoot, and I'm a super fanatic for gun safety and for gun safety training and all that other stuff. And I was call myself a gun-toting left-wing redneck, and
that was a lot of preamble.
We tested. Yeah, it is. Well, you know, there's so much angst about guns right now, and my kids did the walkout yesterday, and I would have joined them if I was in school. You know, the idea being, you know, I've got a series of shotguns and hunting rifles and pistols, so we tested Cults of the Sundered Kingdoms. We had a copy that had gotten just smushed in delivery, and one afternoon, my goddaughter's like, "I bet that thing is so heavy it'd stop a bullet," and so we took it out and Tracy actually filmed it, but she lost the thing. We couldn't get it to download, and it'll stop a 38, but it wouldn't stop a 45. So
I bet
that was one of
Blackwood
our thinner books. That was only a 350 or 400 page book, and so I guess the adage is the joke would be, and this is only a joke. Nobody try this at home, but Frog God Games books can save your life. So
what do they say on MythBusters? You're a professional. Don't do this at home.
Yeah, don't do this at home, right? But yeah, so anyway, so yeah, our books. That's the other thing too that I'll mention is that we're one of the few companies in the industry, and there are a few others that do this. But our color books, with our printer, most of them, not all of them have been, but they are from here on out. We do the clay coated pages, so they're really heavy, they're really durable, they're really high gloss. And if you look at like Bard's Gate or Sword of Air, if you've got those books or if you've seen them, you'll know what I'm talking about. And then the last thing about the quality thing is our leather books aren't the faux reconstituted stuff. They're actually cowhide. We spend thousands of dollars buying cowhides and make a real good, solid leather book for some of our premium folks. That'll, it's a leather book, right? You should be able to, Shakespeare books from the 17th century are still around that are leather books. I mean, they're really, really, really pretty special. They're not cheap, but they're really special. And the last bit that we didn't mention on the Kickstarter, I got one last thing and then I'll shut up.
Okay.
Is Zach found a vendor who could make, what are they? They're like 6 foot by 5.5.
71 by 72 inch like maps and art and
yeah.
And so we make dungeon level maps from them. We use them actually at conventions and along with a 3D printed one, and people can use them. I use them at home when I run my own game, even if it's not anything related to the game, because it's really pretty and waterproof. But they hang like tapestries. They're real nice. We have those on the Kickstarter, and we've sold a lot of them. And everybody loves them. We retail them for about $150, and they're great. So those are there as well. There's all kinds of stuff on the current Kickstarter page, including all the PSD file maps. We didn't talk about that because I kind of mentioned it in another one of the chats, but we offer the PSD files to those people who use GIMP or Photoshop. The creator files and those kinds of things are available. And if you're really into cartography, we have a club on Facebook now, which will start really in earnest once the rest of those are delivered. But we have those things for the people who want to create. And we have an announcement coming this summer about what we're going to do, our setting that involves that as well. We're having art now available for commercial publication. We're selling on RPG now that's black and white, but it's really great art we're not using anymore. So we have lots of stuff like that, and we want people to enjoy it. You can see some of that on the Rappan Athuk Kickstarter. So.
Yep.
So I was thinking,
people who are doing their first book to have it.
I was thinking Frog God Games might save your life against a bullet, but if you carry them in a book bag, you're going to get scoliosis because there's
it's true. It's absolutely true. No, I stocked the booth, man. He bought a Christmas gift for Bill. Was a pallet jack, and it was the greatest gift he ever got.
Yeah.
Well, it was. We are past the hour mark. I want to thank you guys all for coming on. I'm looking forward to see what comes next from Frog God. I especially got my eyes open for MegaHeroes. I want to thank everyone for hanging out with us in the chat today.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
So until next time, guys, stay nerdy.
Yep.
Stay nerdy.